Okay, folks, we are live here. I am actually coming to you from my, believe it or not, childhood bedroom here in Albuquerque, outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm here for the Thanksgiving, visiting my parents, but we're very excited to be live here on the ranked choice tabulation of the 2 statewide races and 10 legislative races. And I'm very excited to announce actually Charisse Millett, who's been with us for the last 2 election centrals or coverages, is actually in studio in Anchorage in Landmine Studio. Charisse, are you there?
I'm right here. How are you? Look at you in your childhood bedroom.
Childhood bedroom right here. I mean, what an amazing. I want to give a big shout out to Scott Jensen and Trent McNeely, and then we have Peter helping out too. But yeah, we have a great team. And as you see, we're, I guess, showing the other box there, but we're gonna, when that happens, we're gonna show the ranked choice tabulation, which is scheduled to start at 4 p.m. And the way I looked at it, and they just did a results update for a few more thousand, it looks like a few more thousand absentee ballots, and nothing has changed materially. And it looks like we have 2 statewide races, the Murkowski Senate race in Chewbacca, and then the Peltola kind of Palin House race that are going to go to this ranked choice tabulation. The governor is still over 50% plus 1. And then we have 10 legislative races, 3 state Senate, and then 7 state House. And I think a lot of those we know, kind of like, I feel like Charisse, the conventional wisdom here is once these Chesbro votes get reallocated, Murkowski should pull it off, right?
Yeah, I think most of the races we can predict right now. There's a couple of really close, one close Senate race, and then a couple of House district races. I think that could possibly change, but I think we're square on the federal races, so on the Senate and the House for Mary Peltola, and then for Lisa Murkowski. I just don't see much changing after the Buzz Kelly votes.
So the Murkowski race, and I think most folks are familiar enough, been hearing this for many months, but somebody has to get to 50% plus 1 with second place votes. And even if every single Buzz Kelly vote went to Kelly Chewbacca, it wouldn't be enough. So these 26,000, 27,000 Chesbro votes, when you factor in kind of the second place and where those go, the bulk of those should go to Murkowski. Now, some of them might bullet vote, and we'll talk about some of these races, like some of these state house races, where it's really hard to tell because lower on the ticket, maybe if you guys can pull up District 11, House District 11.
Yeah, the Walter Featherly and Julie Colomby and Ross Beeling, Colomb, yeah. But that one looks really close. I would say that the other one is interesting is House District 18 with the Cliff Grow and Dave Nelson and Lynn Frank's race. That one looks like to me could be decided today.
Yeah, that's another one where it's
up in the air.
The opposite. the opposite of the Julie Colomb. There's two Democrats and a Republican. David Nelson is the incumbent, and then we have Cliff Groh and Lynn Franks. And the question, and the question in these races, these down ballot, which are lower on the kind of profile races, is how many people bullet voted. That is, just voted for one person.
Yeah.
And didn't make a second choice.
They didn't rank the red, right? Or rank the blue. It'll be interesting to see how people just stop voting.
In this case, what is it? Bullet the blue, maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe I think we should maybe start at the top. We already talked about Murkowski.
Yep.
And let's just go down to the races that are, again, of the 62 races, 3 statewide, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, governor, and then 59 legislative races. It looks like only 12 are going to be going to this ranked choice, because a lot of races had 2 people, even many of the ones was 3 people. That's going, somebody already has the clear majority.
Right, someone's already done 50+1, which is interesting. But for first time ranked choice voting, it is interesting that we have this many races that are still undecided, 3 weeks after the election.
Well, and I think it's been a little frustrating. They've been kind of updating the vote tallies, and I know that we have a rule about our law. Ballots can come in for 2 weeks, but even the early votes and not having those tallies in place for a while. If we can go to the percentages on the House race, Peltola is right there at 48.7%. So she's really, really close to the threshold. Yeah. If we can have,
she definitely has 48.77, and I just don't think mathematically Sarah Palin cannot prevail in this race.
If you guys can refresh, I think you guys are still on the old. I'm showing a different. Maybe go back one to the Division of Elections page and refresh it, because I'm showing 48.77. So sometimes the refresh doesn't pull up right away. But
yeah, the last update was 2:29 p.m. today.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing here, 2:29. Yeah, so look at that. Look at that result.
Yep.
But I mean, there is. It's almost theoretically possible but I don't think every Chris By person is going to vote for Peltola. But I mean, she's probably going to pick up some of those Chris By votes, so she might be at like 49 point something, right? After this By guy's votes get recycled. And then if it's anything close to what we saw in August with 30% of Nick Begich voters voting for Peltola, I mean, she's going to be way over the top.
Yeah,
right?
and there was such a heated argument or heated relationship between Sarah Palin and Nick Begich. They didn't really start talking about rank the red till it was almost too late, I think. If either one of them wanted to overcome Mary Peltola's lead, they should have been talking about rank the red long before. They spent most of the time just back and forth at each other, and I think it would have been to their benefit if they would have got the mantra early and said, rank me 1, rank Sarah 2, or Sarah 1, Nick 2. And I think it would have been a much different race than what we're seeing now with the outcome.
Well, they were still kind of going. They were still kind of going after each other, like up until maybe a month, 6 weeks, and then we talked about this on our coverage a few weeks ago for the regular election with you and Mark Begich and Ivan Moore. But this rank the red thing, they were trying to apply this to the House, but they didn't want that to go to the Senate. The same people with Murkowski and Chewbacca. So it was kind of like rank the red here, but not here. Like mixed messaging.
Right. It was very mixed messaging. And I think if the Republicans had got on their game early, you wouldn't have seen that. I think you would have seen rank the red all the way through. And it would have been less confusing for voters. And there's a lot of animosity in the House race between Nick Begich and Sarah Palin. So I think.
But if you look at their totals, if you add up Palin's and Begich's totals together, I mean, when you factor in By, it's over the 50% plus 1. But Palin and Begich have combined vote less than 50%.
Yeah, that's true. But I just don't think that there's going to be a lot of Nick Begich people that are going to be voting for Sarah Palin and vice versa. I just don't think you'll see a lot of that rollover. I think you're going to see they voted one time and then one and done. And so
in August, we saw that half of them Begich voters voted for Palin, and then a third voted for Peltola, and then 20% did the bullet vote where they exhausted. But also, Peltola in August, it was just 3 people, not 4, because of that weird loophole.
Right.
But Peltola was at about 40 or 41%. Now she's at almost 49%.
Yeah, 48.77. I mean, she's not far from that threshold of 50+1. So it'll be interesting to see when they count the first round of Chris By votes, like, does she make it over the 50% mark with those votes, the Libertarian votes? Do they decide the election?
I think it'll be really close. Let's go real quick. Let's talk about, this is not going to be a ranked choice race, but the governor's race is fascinating. Dunleavy, who was kind of had a rough start with Tuckerman Babcock and Donna Arduin and all the kind of raucous tension between the legislature and then the recall, and he's kind of, COVID happened, and then this Putin thing happened in Ukraine and the invasion and the price of oil went up, and now Dunleavy, if we can pull up the results, guys, it's incredible to me that he's the only one statewide
over the 50%.
Over the 50%, and a Republican. So you have a Democrat poll that was close to 50% plus one.
Right.
Dunleavy is a Republican, and he's over. Yeah. Barely. I mean, we're talking about a few votes.
If anybody outside of Alaska were to look at our election results, they would think that Alaska is a very confused state, right? We're neither red, or blue. I mean, we're everything in between. We've got a strong Republican governor, and we're looking at U.S. Congress as a Democrat, and then Lisa Murkowski as moderate Republican. So it's an interesting race to me if you were to analyze it from a national position.
Yeah, it's very, and even if Dunleavy were to, let's say with this new batch, even if he were to be at 49% or whatever, we see the Pierce Grunwald votes at their own 4.5%.
Yeah.
Which would have kicked over mostly to Dunleavy. So, but I think it's worth mentioning that it's of the three statewide, and this is the first time we talked about before in the last coverage, but the first time we've had three statewide races, U.S. Senate, U.S. House governor, on the ballot since 2014.
Right. Yeah, it was a big race, and a lot of confusion with the ranked choice voting. I think people were, I wouldn't say confusion as much as anxiety and maybe a little angst about having to vote in the ranked choice this way. So it will definitely go down as one of the most interesting races in Alaska's history, next to the write-in vote for Senator Murkowski.
Let's go, and just to give the folks an update, the Division of Elections, they say they're going to start the tabulation at 4 p.m. So we're going to have their feed in our little cool box we have there, where you're seeing the results. We're going to have their feed live, so you can watch it here on the landmine. You can also, they're broadcasting as well on Gavel and KTO, but I mean, you can watch it with us because we got that extra little amount of
we have that extra commentary going, and that extra color, yeah, energy, high energy, lots of high energy here.
So let's go down, guys, to the state senate. We have 3 state senate races. The first one is District D, which is the Tuckerman Babcock, Jesse Bjorkman, and then we have Andy Cizik, who kind of owns that big ice cream stand in Soldotna. Didn't raise much money, but he's sitting at 11.6%, where Babcock's sitting at 45 and Bjorkman's at 41. Now, Babcock already kind of conceded. He said, look, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I think Bjorkman's really in the driver's seat here, but really we aren't going to know, because if a whole bunch of Andy Cizik people voted for Tuckerman second, if a lot of them did, this could be really close. I mean, we don't know. I think you're right. I think this is going to be a closer race than people anticipated.
I still think Jesse Bjorkman will prevail, but it'll be interesting to see where the votes land on how many votes separate Jesse Bjorkman and Tuckerman Babcock on this one. I mean, Jesse's sitting at 45.82 and Tuckerman's at 41.60, but then you've got Andy's votes at 11%. So where does that go?
So I mean, Andy has 4 times as many votes as the difference between. So there's 4% difference between Babcock and Bjorkman, and then Andy's at almost 12%. So it's
twice as much.
We got to look at the thing to be watching for the viewers when this happens is the exhaustion. Like, how many, of these 1,768 people, how many did do a second choice?
Right. How many dropped off?
Maybe 300 or 400 of them just voted for Andy Cizik, who didn't raise a lot of money. Who we'll talk about some of these House races, but maybe more of a protest vote. The next one we're going to go to is a really big. This is the biggest, weirdest, I think, race out there for ranked choice voting. It's the District E. This is Roger Holland, the incumbent, Kathy Giesel, kind of coming for the rematch. She was beat by him in 2020 in the Republican primary, and then Rosalind Casey, who's a Democrat who didn't really do anything.
Isn't she? Aren't you and her good friends? Didn't you run against her once?
We're not good friends. No.
Okay.
She's basically
I can't remember. I always get confused on that one.
She's a really bad element. She's a bad part of the system. People like who run, don't have any money, but In this case, she siphoned off a third of the vote, where Giesel is in first by, this changed a bit. So I think it was about 93 votes. So with these few more absentees, she's about the same. Yeah, really, really, really close margin.
Yeah, looks like she's about 90 votes. Let's see, 90 would be 111 votes ahead, right?
Yeah, 55, 20, yeah.
111 votes. But it's interesting that Rosalind Casey
No, less than that, because 56-21 would be 100. So it's about the same number, 90 something. But
I did Common Core math. I just want you to know I did Common Core
yeah,
math.
Well, that's where it's at these days. You didn't do Common Core. It's like new. I didn't. Luckily I was still in the regular,
You were in the regular school before Common Core math came in?
That's a different topic. But just as kind of similar, you can kind of relate this one to the Lisa Murkowski race, where Pat Chesbrough's votes are going to decide the race. In this case, Rosalind Casey's votes are going to decide the race, and I just don't see a lot of Democrat Rosalind Casey voters going for Roger Holland. Now, I think there's probably going to be a ton of bullet votes here.
I do too.
But Giesel, was working with Democrats, Tom Begich, when she was in the Senate. She's used to be considered a very kind of extreme conservative, and then she moderated herself.
I think the permanent fund debate really defined this race, right? I think Kathy Giesel's in the court where we can't have a full PFD. We need to do one within our ability. And Roger Holland was, I want a full PFD. So I can't imagine Rosalind Casey's votes, like you said, going to Roger Holland. But I mean, to have a race this close, 33.10, 33.64, and 32.92, I mean, all getting 30% or more in the race. Yeah. This is a true test of ranked choice voting on who Rosalind Casey's votes decide who goes to the Senate in this district. So a Democrats' votes are going to decide who goes.
Well, and I think you mentioned the dividend thing. Holland's association and kind of alliance with Mike Shower, Shelley Hughes, David, the David Wilson, the Valley. This doesn't fly in South Anchorage.
I don't think so
either. These people
either.
Aren't dividend folks.
Right.
They're higher income. They're like, look, do whatever we could, but we don't want taxes. So I think his kind of running with the further right Republicans in the Valley, and then voting against the budget, and remember he called the budget a dumpster fire.
He did, yeah, he did. That doesn't bode well when you're running for re-election, and like you said, that is a high-end neighborhood. Folks, just what they're protecting is they don't want an income tax, and so when they talk about the dividend, right, that was a lot of her messaging was, we have to live within our means. We don't need to do an income tax. And Roger Holland was full PFD at whatever cost it is. However you come on the dividend. I think that race was all a dividend race.
Speaking of David Wilson, let's go to District N. This is the last Senate race, which is going to be a ranked choice situation. And this is really another kind of interesting one. Not as interesting as the Giesel race, but David Wilson, the incumbent, he's sitting at 40. Let's see the update. It was about 45%. 44 almost 45%.
Right.
Where Stephen Wright, who was just pictured there, he ran against Wilson in 2020 in the six-way Republican primary and he got second place. He's kind of back. His wife is running against, we'll see another ranked choice race, the Jesse Sumner.
Yep. Valley race.
Stephen Ard race in the Valley. So
another
Jessica race in that race. So there's a lot of ranked choice in the Wright household. But Scott Clayton votes. Now I think Wilson's going to win.
I do too.
If you look at 28.9, if you look at Wright's votes plus Clayton's votes, if almost every, let's say the vast majority of the Scott Clayton voters went for Wright, he could win. I mean, he could. It's not like possible. The Palin Begich race where they don't really equal 50. It's wouldn't really be almost impossible. In this case, it's what 20, 48.
Between those
53%.
two, yeah, they have almost 54%, right? If you look at what they're doing, you're right. That race, I want to say David Wilson has the advantage in that race, but you never know because were those protest votes anybody but David Wilson votes, or were they?
I mean, it's three Republicans. Mm-hmm. If you're voting for Scott Clayton, somebody who didn't campaign a great deal, you're kind of voting, I think, against David Wilson and against Stephen Wright. And if you're voting against David Wilson, the incumbent, maybe you vote for Stephen Wright second. But I do think we're going to see some exhaustion here. We're just going to see the bullet.
I think so too. Yep.
So this is one. And the division has told us they're going to start the races. They're going to start on the top in the U.S. Senate, then U.S. House. Then they're going to go down state Senate. So we're going to see these in order as far as going. Let's go to the next one. I think it's Pretty sure it's District 11.
Yep,
Yeah, here we go.
House
This is the one we kind of mentioned earlier.
Yeah, this is another interesting race. Walter Featherly. I live near his district, and watching his signs go up, it was interesting to me that he did as well as he did. I just didn't see him as someone.
He hardly raised any money.
Yeah, didn't campaign except for at the end when he put a bunch of signs up. But and Ross Beeling has ran for office before, so Ross is has some name recognition. Julie Colomb, I don't think she had any name recognition.
No, first time candidate. She raised money. Walter raised money. Ross hardly raised any money. A lot of it was non-monetary from his old sign. So
right.
We have several more races to cover, but I mean, this is like the one if Julie doesn't get a lot of these Ross votes, if a lot of Ross Beeling people bullet vote or exhaust their ballot, then Walter could win. I mean, I think Walter's he's way ahead of her, and it's really up to these Beeling voters. Let's go to District. I think it's 15 is our next one, which is similar dynamic. Of that one, we have two Republicans, Tom McKay, the incumbent, and then David Ibeck, who didn't, again, like Ross, raised hardly any money, almost no money, didn't campaign much, but he siphoned off. Let's see here, pull it up here. I think it's like
14% of the votes. So 14% of the votes with Tom McKay's 38% of the vote. It just depends on if people continue down the ballot voting for the Republican.
Very similar. I mean, he got almost the same percentage as Ross Beeling.
Right. So very similar race.
So what I think is, like, if you're voting for David Ibeck or Ross Beeling in these districts, I think you're kind of voting against Tom McKay or Julie Colomb.
Right, more of a protest vote, right.
Walter Featherly. So, we have to watch this one too. We have to see on the fall off, the drop off, and then how many people rank a second, So let's go to the next one. I think is another one 18. Interesting, but this is the opposite of the other two. In this case, two Democrats. We touched on this earlier, and then the incumbent David Nelson, who's it's kind of the opposite dynamic of the other two, where Nelson's got about 44%. He dropped a bit. He was at almost 45%. He dropped a bit. So the question is Cliff Groh, who raised $200,000 and was campaigning, he was telling people, those two were telling people to rank. What is it?
Rank.
Bullet the blue? Or no?
Yeah.
Sorry, build the blue. Or
build the blue, bullet the blue. But yeah, so Cliff Groh has 743 votes, and you look at Lynn Franks, has got 425.
Bubble the blue.
Bubble the blue. Was it Bubble the blue?
Bubble the blue. Bubble the blue. And also look at the turnout here. A lot of these House districts have 5 or 6 or 7,000. This is the base, so it's like we're talking about a couple thousand. I mean, he could have talked to every single Lynn Franks voter. He could have had a conversation with all of them. There's only 425 of them.
Yeah, I'm surprised. This one, I mean, it's. I don't know if Lynn Franks' votes stopped or if Cliff Groh gets those. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this one turns, because that's 9% to overcome for Cliff Groh to overtake David Nelson.
I think Featherly has the advantage. And the other one, I think Denny Wells has the advantage. And here I think David Nelson has the advantage just because of the dynamic. But we're going to see here. We got about 8 minutes till we go to the other race. Let's go to the next one. Is I think
28.
It's 28. Now, this is what we talked about earlier. This is Jessica Wright, is the wife of Stephen Wright, who's running against David Wilson. But 4 Republicans, nobody even close to 50%. Jesse Sumner's about 10 to 11 points ahead of Steve Menard.
Yeah.
And Steve and Jesse were pretty much even in the primary. And then I think Jesse got a little wake-up call. Now, Rachel Allen's kind of a David Eastman person to recruit. So this one, I just have no idea. I mean, I think Jesse's, because he's so far ahead,
I have no
probably
idea.
Got the advantage.
However, if we were going on photos, I mean, Steve Menard's cowboy hat picture is pretty epic. Like, if you're just
let's go back to that. I mean, that's a good picture. We can pull that
I mean, that's a statement photo.
Look at that. I mean, I don't know. Is that U.S.? Was he a Marine?
I think he must have. I think so. Yeah, I think he was a U.S. Marine. But
look at that hat. I mean, that whole thing. Jesse's got that kind of power.
He does.
Arm crossing, power stance, and Rachel Allen looks like that's like a business headshot for like a job interview. And then Jessica very happy. I don't know. They're all kind of. If I was going, I don't know what I would pick if I didn't know them and I just saw these pictures.
I mean, Jesse Sumner's looks strong too with the crossed arm photo and the glamour shot from Rachel Allen, and Jessica Wright just looks like a normal, didn't pose for it, just happy and yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next one is 30. I think we're at 31.
30. So Kevin McCabe, right? So District 30, which is Kevin McCabe, Doyle Holmes, Joy Mandola.
I couldn't find anything about this Mendiola lady. She got 20%. McCabe, I think it's interesting. McCabe is the incumbent, very vocal, kind of member of the Republican minority, and he's only 45%. Doyle Holmes, he did raise money. He did give a lot of his own money to the campaign. But, if I'm Kevin McCabe, I'm looking at, man, this other guy got 35%.
Right.
That's a significant.
I think, yeah, I think that, well, it'll be interesting to see if the Democrats will vote for Kevin McCabe or if they protest vote and vote for Doyle Holmes, right?
I think probably I think the majority will go to Holmes, but I think a whole bunch are going to bullet vote.
Right, I do. But I still think Kevin McCabe wins this race.
Okay, so DOA is about to start they're starting. Let's finish these out real quick. We have a couple more we're going to just go over. 31 is Labano. This is, we predicted before the election even that Diebert was going to win, raised a lot of money. Kelly Nash was out there calling Bart LeBon a rhino. Don't vote for Bart LeBon. She's at almost, she's at 49.
49.11.
49.11. I mean, just we're talking about, 9/10 of a percent to get over there. So
I think she maintains her lead and prevails in that race.
Yeah, she'll win. I think we have one more.
House District 34, which is
what Nate DeMars kind of dropped out but didn't do it on time. So Tom Macheski, this is the Grier Hopkins seat. It was made more conservative in the redistricting. He's kind of a casualty of redistricting, but Tom Macheski was above half. Now he's below a little bit, but when these DeMars votes kick over, he should win, pretty easily. So those are the races to watch. We've broken them down. Now Scott tells me the division has started their feed, so once that goes, we can pull that up. But we're gonna have their feed in our little cool box there. And so you got me and Charisse, and then you got the feed. And again, I want to give a big thanks to Scott and Trent back there for doing this day before Thanksgiving. Oh, look at that! They have a little shot of Juno.
A live
Charisse, you've been there,
shot.
right? You've spent some time there, haven't you?
I have. I did. I spent 16. Well, I was born there first off, so I started there when I was born, and then 16 years down there.
Yeah, look at the very Juno, the kind of
very Juno. We could just walk down that road right there and go to Palmani's and get some dumplings.
Or hang a left and go to the Triangle or the Narrows bar.
Or hang to the left and go to the Narrows or the Triangle or the Lucky Lady.
Or the new Crystal. I gotta give a shout out to Jared Curie, my buddy, the Crystal Saloon, which is the old Viking.
The Crystal Palace or the Crystal Saloon?
I think it's Crystal Saloon.
It's a Crystal Saloon, yeah.
Crystal Palace sounds good too, but that he kind of got lucky with COVID. He bought it and then COVID happened, so he was able to spend all that time remodeling it. And it looks really, you've been in there since?
So we went there last week, and I just peered in the window. It looks amazing. It looks nothing like the old bar at all. Nothing similar at all.
If you're in Juneau, guys, check out Narrows, check out Crystal Saloon, and then also Triangle and
Lucky Lady. Go see Sherry and Mark at Lucky Lady.
There's a whole little set of bars down there in Juneau, which is nice too, and restaurants too. I like the Hangar and some other.
Yeah, I only went to those bars once in a while. I was very rarely.
Yeah, no, I hardly ever go. I'm like, 3 times, 5 times a week, 7 times. not a lot.
Back in the day, it used to be where all the real work was done, and now it's frowned upon.
Well, I heard stories about, on big votes, there'd be people in the Triangle, and they'd be watching on the TV, and the stat, it'd be kind of these end of session things, and people would be almost like a football game or something. They're kind of watching the stuff go down.
Betting on which bill would pass and which bill wouldn't pass.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times Republicans would stand up versus Democrats.
Somebody even told me once, I won't say who, but I was told that a lobbyist, there was they were talking on the floor, and they mentioned something about, I don't even know who the speaker was. They might have been Chenault or Harris, but they said, watch this. And in the Triangle, they picked up the phone. The speaker and the president, they have a phone at their desk. And I'm told nobody has those numbers, nobody. A few people, the staff, maybe.
Majority leader.
This lobbyist got on the cell phone, rang it, speaker goes to an Eddie's, picks up the phone. And everybody in the place was like, oh my God, how'd you get that number?
There are a few lobbyists that have that number, and I will tell you that it's very rarely used. People call other than the speaker's chief of staff. Do
you have the number? And does the number change?
The number does not change.
So I bet you're majority leader. You probably have the number, right?
Well, maybe.
But you could just walk up. You're right there.
I was on the floor, so I could just say, Mr. Speaker, brief at ease. And I always found that funny because it's never brief.
We're still waiting for the coverage to start. But Charisse, did you ever feel like you were getting maneuvered, like you were out of the building and maybe they were going to try to do something crazy, or?
No. I mean, I was never in a position of real power, so it never really came to that for me. I didn't feel like someone was going to oust me as a minority leader or the majority leader, and so it wasn't like I felt like they were going to take a coup on my position.
The big one is the speaker. I mean, we saw that. Right. I wasn't even alive, but in the 80s, they like bolted the door shut and they had the 21 and they reorganized like live.
Right. I think there was like twice that happened. One was back in the 70s and one was in the 80s. But the whole time I was down in Juneau, Mike Chenault was a speaker, and yeah, when you're fair and even keeled through the whole election or the whole session, no one really is going to try to remove you.
Yeah, Mike told me, he said, lately in the last several years, we've seen it get contentious and people being limited on how much they can talk, how long they can talk, and there's been some real contention. But he just told me, he's like, let them talk as long as they want. You want to talk? 5 hours, go ahead, talk.
And he wasn't afraid to go after midnight. I mean, I can remember multiple times where we were in session, end of session, and I'd be looking at the clock, going, "Boy, I'm sure tired." And Chenault would be like, "Well, we've got 14 people ready to stand up and talk on this one amendment." He wasn't afraid to go till 3 or 4 in the morning, and we didn't limit debate until the first time I think we limited debate was when the first time we were in the minority in a long time, and that was Speaker Edgman got to a point where it was very apparent that we would be all night long with some of the folks we had on the right and the left that would get up and basically talk until they were talked out, and a lot of people couldn't do that. Oh, there's a live feed.
We have the feed here. We're going to pull this up.
And we are here today in the director's office in Juneau. We're about to do ranked choice tabulation for 12 races in the general election in which a candidate did not receive 50% plus 1 vote. Not all races will require this, as I just stated. So if I do not pronounce the race today, that means the ranked choice voting was not necessary for that race. But before we start, I wanted to share a few important words. I thank my coworkers across the division. Dang it, I knew I was going to do this. Across the division for their integrity, hard work, and dedication. No matter what it takes, you do what is needed to get the job done. Your work ethic is second to none. You've worked diligently and hard and so many long hours to ensure Alaska elections are conducted impartially, with integrity, and in accordance with state law. Alaska voters are lucky to have you at the helm. Secondly, I want to thank our thousands of election workers, precinct workers, election day workers, absentee and early voting officials, and board members. Without you, we would not be here today. We're grateful for your service to the state. Okay, now on to tabulation. All the results we're about to announce today they're still unofficial results because the State Review Board is going through their certification process and they are not complete at this time. We anticipate our target certification is set for November 29th. Our elections program manager, Brian Jackson, will be doing our tabulation today, and he is here in the room with us on a computer. We have no internet connectivity whatsoever in this room. No devices, cameras, anything are connected to the internet. So with that, we will get started. On the left of the screen is, on the right side of the screen is the summary report that we just posted. And you can see for United States Senator, Pat Chesbro has 27,108 votes. Buzz Kelly has 7,534 votes. Lisa Murkowski, 113,299 votes. Kelly Shabaka, 111,283 votes. And write-ins have 2,018. On the left side of the screen are the ranked contests, and they are in order, starting with United States Senator, and they'll go all the way down to House District 40. So Brian is now going to choose a United States Senator for tabulation. Please select tabulate. And what you see now on the screen is what has happened. The write-in votes have been redistributed to the active candidates, as well as any ballots that had first choice votes that were blank. So you will see vote differences now between this result and what appeared on the summary report. Patricia Chesbro, 28,185. Buzz Kelly, 8,540. Lisa Murkowski, 113,800. Kelly Shabaka, 111,886. Brian, please select tabulate. So in this round, Buzz Kelly has been eliminated because he was the candidate with the least number of votes, with 8,540. Brian, please select tabulate. In this round, Patricia Chesbro has been eliminated. And the remaining votes have now been distributed to the remaining two candidates. And Lisa Murkowski is in the lead with 135,972 votes, and Kelly Shabaka, 117,299 votes. So Brian is now going to produce the ranked choice voting detail report, which will show round by round how the votes were redistributed to candidates. So in round one, Buzz Kelly was the candidate with the least number of votes, and he was eliminated. Buzz Kelly's votes were transferred to 893 went to Patricia Chesbro, 1,629 went to Lisa Murkowski, 3,204 went to Kelly Shabaka, and there were 2,797 exhausted ballots, which mean there were no more active candidates or no more valid marks on that ballot for that specific. And there were 2,797 in round two, Patricia Chesbro was eliminated. The votes for Ms. Chesbro were transferred 20,543 to Lisa Murkowski, 2,209 to Kelly Shabaka. And
geez, that was fast. They're showing the report now on these other votes. We're going to go through these later.
And then this shows
look at how they got retabulated and then recycled. But we're going to go back to the live feed here. Thanks, Scott.
Lisa Murkowski, 135,972, and Kelly Shabaka, 117,299. So now we will move on to the United States representative race. And again, the summary on the right side of your screen shows Nick Begich with 61,431 votes, Chris By with 4,560 votes, Sarah Palin with 67,732 votes, and Representative Peltola with 128,329 votes. Brian, please select the race for tabulation. So again, this shows the redistribution of write-ins and any ballots that did not have a first choice vote marked on their ballot. Nick Begich, 62,404. Chris By, 4,986. Sarah Palin, 68,178. Mary Peltola, 128,403. Brian, please select tabulation. In this round, Chris By was eliminated, and his votes were distributed amongst the remaining candidates. Brian, please select tabulation. In this round, Nick Begich was eliminated, and his votes were redistributed to the remaining 2 candidates, and the new totals now show Mary Peltola with 129,433, and Sarah Palin was 69,242. Brian, will you then please complete the RCV detailed report? So again, the detailed report showing Chris By eliminated, and his votes were redistributed as follows. Nick Begich, 1,988. Sarah Palin, 1,064. Mary Peltola, 1,030. And there were 901 of those that were exhausted. In round 2, Nick Begich was eliminated because he was the candidate with the least number of votes. And those votes were transferred to 43,013 to Sarah Palin, 7,460 to Mary Peltola, and there was a number of exhausted ballots of 13,864. So again, the numbers showing Mary Peltola, 136,893, Sarah Palin, 112,255. We will now move on to Senate District D. Brian, please select tabulate. Not quite yet, sorry. So let's show the summary report again. There we go. Yep. That was my bad. The summary report shows Tuckerman Babcock was 6,311. Jesse Bjorkman was 6,950. Andy Cizik with 1,768, and write-ins with 140. Brian, will you now please press tabulate? And here we show the write-ins being redistributed to the candidates. Tuckerman Babcock now has 6,331. Jesse Bjorkman, 7,072. Andy Cizik, 1,787. Brian, please press tabulate. Andy Cizik was eliminated from this race as he had the lowest number of votes, first choice votes. And the number of votes now are Jesse Bjorkman, 7,072, and Tuckerman Babcock, 6,331. So Brian will now show the RCV detailed report. In round 1, Andy Cizik was eliminated, receiving 1,787 votes. Those votes were transferred to 263 to Tuckerman Babcock, 532 to Jesse Bjorkman, and then there are a number of exhausted ballots. And then round 2 shows the total new votes for Jesse Bjorkman, 7,604, Tuckerman Babcock, 6,594. We will now move on to Senate E. Again, you see the summary report on the right side of your screen. Roger Holland, 5,521. Kathy Giesel, 5,610. Rosalind Casey, 5,490. Write-ins, 58. Brian, please select tabulate. Again, with the write-ins being redistributed in any ballots that did not have a first choice marked. Roger Holland, 5,532. Kathy Giesel, 5,651. Rosalind Casey, 5,518. Brian, please select tabulate. So Rosalind Casey has been eliminated, and Kathy Giesel now has 5,651 votes, and Roger Holland has 5,532 votes. So the RCV detail report for Senate District E in round one, showing Rosalind Casey as the first candidate that's eliminated because she had the least number of votes, 5,518. Those were transferred, 417 to Roger Holland, 2,229 to Kathy Giesel, 2,871 were exhausted. And again, this is a repeat of the final RCV unofficial numbers. Kathy Giesel, 7,880. Roger Holland, 5,949. We will now move on to Senate District N. The summary report is showing Scott Clayton with 2,912, David Wilson with 5,113, Stephen Wright with 3,332, and write-ins with 139. Brian, please select tabulate. And this first screen here again showing the write-ins have been transferred, as well as any ballots that did not have a first choice marking. Scott Clayton now has 2,965. David Wilson, 5,150. Stephen Wright, 3,369. Brian, please select tabulate. Scott Clayton has been eliminated with the candidate with the least number of votes. And the new totals now show David Wilson with 5,150 and Stephen Wright with 3,369. The RCV detail report showing Scott Clayton's 2,965 votes. He was eliminated as the candidate in this round. Those votes were transferred 949 to David Wilson, 923 to Stephen Wright, and 1,089 were exhausted. Showing David Wilson 6,099, Stephen Wright 4,292. We'll now move on to House District 11. The summary report for House District 11 shows Walter Featherly with 3,472 votes, Ross Beeling with 1,174 votes, and Julie Coulombe with 2,949 votes. Brian, please select tabulate. With write-ins being eliminated and first choice ballots with no first choice vote, Walter Featherly now sits at 3,480, Ross Beeling at 1,183, and Julie Coulombe at 2,998. Brian, please select tabulate. Ross Beeling has been eliminated, and his votes were transferred to the two remaining candidates. And Julie Colomb now has 3,671 votes. And Walter Featherly has 3,561 votes. I think in one of the previous ones, I may not have read the numbers from the right column in one of those results, but you'll be able to see that information in the detail report, so my apologies for that. In round one, Ross Beeling was eliminated. His votes went 81 to Walter Featherly, 673 to Julie Coulombe, and 429 were exhausted. So leaving the new unofficial numbers, Julie Coulombe at 3,671 and Walter Featherly at 3,561. We'll now move on to House District 18, no, House District 15. The summary report for House District 15 shows Denny Wells with 3,371 votes, David Ibeck with 1,018 votes, Tom McKay with 2,806 votes. Brian, please select tabulate. With write-ins and ballots with no first choices being redistributed, Denny Wells is at 3,376, David Ibeck is at 1,030, and Thomas McKay is at 2,833. Brian, please tabulate. David Ibeck has been eliminated. Thomas McKay now has 3,472 votes, and Denny Wells now has 3,468 votes. Brian's going to create the detail report. David Ibeck with 1,030 votes was eliminated. 92 of those votes went to Denny Wells, 639 went to Thomas McKay, and 299 were exhausted. So the final number, new unofficial numbers showing Thomas McKay with 3,472 and Denny Wells with 3,468. We'll now move on to House District 18. The summary report for House District 18 shows Lynn Franks with 425 votes, David Nelson with 925 votes, and Cliff Grow with 743 votes. And there are 9, there are 9 write-ins. Brian, please select tabulate. Again, with write-ins and ballots that had no first choice marked, Lynn Franks now has 443 votes. David Nelson has 925 votes, and Cliff Grow has 746 votes. Tabulate. Lynn Franks was eliminated. The new unofficial total show Cliff Grow with 1,045 and David Nelson with 965. Now for the detailed report. Lynn Franks with 443 votes was eliminated. David Nelson received 40 of those votes. 299 went to Cliff Grow and 104 were exhausted. Cliff Grow with 1,045 votes and David Nelson with 965. We'll now move on to House District 28. The summary report for House District 28 shows Rachel Allen with 1,264 votes, Jesse Sumner with 2,161 votes, Jessica Wright with 849 votes, and Steve Menard with 1,513 votes and 105 write-ins. Brian, please select tabulate. And again with write-ins and ballots with no first choice redistributed, Rachel Allen now has 1,277, Jesse Sumner 2,210, Jessica Wright 859, and Stephen Menard 1,565. Tabulate. Jessica Wright has been eliminated in this round, and you can see the new totals are 1,710 for Stephen Menard, 2,410 for Jesse Sumner, 1,480 for Rachel Allen. Tabulate, please. Rachel Allen has been eliminated in this round. Jesse Sumner now has 3,109 votes, and Steve Menard has 1,920 votes. The RCV detailed report showing Jessica Wright with 859 votes, and they were redistributed as follows: 203 to Rachel Allen, 200 to Jesse Sumner, 145 to Steve Menard, and 310 were exhausted. In the next round, Rachel Allen was eliminated, and those votes were transferred as follows: 699 to Jesse Sumner, 210 to Steve Menard, and 570 were exhausted. So the new totals again showing Jesse Sumner with 3,109 and Steve Menard with 1,920. We will now move on to House District 30. The summary report for House District 30 shows Doyle Holmes with 2,582 votes, Kevin McCabe with 3,379 votes, and Joy Mendiola with 1,501 votes, write-ins 46. Brian, please tabulate. Again, with write-ins and ballots that had no first choice marked, the votes now stand: Doyle Holmes, 2,595, Kevin McCabe, 3,382, Joy Mendiola, 1,512. Please tabulate. In this round, Joy was eliminated, and there are now only two candidates remaining: Kevin McCabe with 3,382 votes, Doyle Holmes with 2,595 votes. The RCV detail report for House District 30 showing Joy Mendiola with 1,512 votes, and those votes were redistributed as follows: 274 to Doyle Holmes, 268 to Kevin McCabe, and 970 were exhausted. The new unofficial numbers: Kevin McCabe, 3,650, Doyle Holmes, 2,869. We will now move on to House District 31. The summary report for House District 31 shows Kelly Nash with 1,040 votes, Maxine Dibert, 2,469 votes, Barton LeBon, 1,479 votes, and write-ins 39. Brian, please tabulate. Again, here with write-ins and ballots with no first choice being redistributed, Kelly Nash has 1,092 votes. Maxine Diebert, 2,478 votes. Barton Laban, 1,492 votes. Please tabulate. And in this round, Kelly Nash was eliminated. And the new unofficial numbers show Maxine Diebert, 2,589, and Barton Laban, 2,074. The RCV detail report showing Kelly Nash with 1,092 votes being eliminated, and those votes were distributed 111 to Maxine Diebert, 582 to Barton Laban, and 399 were exhausted. Again, showing the new unofficial numbers, Maxine Diebert, 2,589, Barton Laban, 2,074. We will now move on to the last race, which is House District 34. The summary report shows Grier Hopkins, 3,165. Frank Tomaszewski, 3,596. Nate DeMars, 574. And write-ins, 16. Brian, please tabulate. Again, with write-ins and ballots with no first choice, Grier Hopkins now has 3,168. Frank Tomaszewski, 3,604. Nate DeMars, 585. Brian, please tabulate. This is showing Nate DeMars has been eliminated. The new unofficial numbers, 4,002 for Frank Tomaszewski and 3,193 for Grier Hopkins. The RCV detail report for House District 34 showing Nate DeMars as the lowest candidate with 585 votes. Those votes went 25 to Grier Hopkins, 398 to Frank Tomaszewski, and 161 were exhausted. And again, the new updated unofficial numbers, 4,002 to Frank Tomaszewski and 3,193 to Grier Hopkins. And that's the last race we have at this point for ranked choice voting. My apologies if I mispronounced anybody's name. So please accept those wholeheartedly. We will have the RCV detailed reports up very soon as we conclude here today. And thank you for tuning in, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. As soon as we conclude here today. And thank you for tuning in, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Wow, well, that was definitely an interesting way to do vote counting for the first time. I didn't expect some of the results that we got, so it's been, that was an interesting.
Hold on, let me turn this volume down. Sorry, I'm looking up something on my chart here.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I'm pulling up my chart here that I'm keeping track of, and on the House with these. I mean, that's wild. I mean, we'll start with the top races. You know, U.S. Senate, U.S. House, but Tom McKay leading by 4 votes. That's going to be an automatic recount. So
4 votes.
Just real quick, it looks like with these races as they sit, the coalition members have 19, and the Republicans have
20,
and then Pocketok is kind of like, my God, the Houses, and then you got the you know, we'll talk about the House in a second with some of these races in litigation, but Murkowski kind of went. We should pull up later. I mean, I don't know if we want to do it now because it's going to take forever to look into it, but I mean, you know, exhausted ballots and kind of where the ballots went. But I mean, Murkowski was. One thing I noticed was Murkowski had almost the same number of votes as Peltola in the end.
Yeah, it's almost like that everybody that voted for Murkowski, Peltola, they were like a ticket, right? They had the same. They were very similar in vote numbers, and it was interesting to see the exhausted votes from this race from Murkowski and Buzz Kelly. I didn't take a picture of it, but it struck me as that there was not a lot of exhausted votes. I thought there'd be more, I guess, than there was.
I mean, I think we all kind of expected that to happen. I mean, I think Murkowski maybe did a little better than I even thought, because I was unsure about exhaustion, and even in the Buzz Kelly, if we went back, and I remember pretty decent amount of his people voted for Murkowski.
Right. I think you're right. I wish I grabbed some. I started taking pictures after the U.S. rep so I could see the exhausted votes. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a big surprise here, except I think I'm surprised that Senator Murkowski took that much of a lead. I think people were calling it for a lot closer, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, again, I'm just looking at these. I'm looking at my spreadsheet here on these House races real quick, because I think it's so interesting that, I mean, Cologne won by about 100 votes, and then let's go to the Peltola race real quick. I mean, that was another one where, we saw the kind of same thing happen in August, where the Begich voters went over. A lot of them went over to Peltola. I mean, Palin picked up a lot of his voters.
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
The problem is Mary was just so far ahead on the outset that she just, like I said before, we were talking before the stream, it just wasn't, Peltola had so many votes, there wasn't really enough Republican votes
to overtake her lead. Yeah, it just didn't look like that was going to happen. And yeah, looks like a lot of Nick Begich's votes did go to Sarah Palin, but not enough to overcome the lead that Mary Peltola had.
Man, Gail got a little emotional there, huh? Towards that.
She did.
That deal in the beginning. Woo.
She did. I think the Division of Elections were under a tremendous amount of pressure and scrutiny throughout this election. So I imagine that this is a good day for Gail. She's going to have a happy Thanksgiving. The election, other than
I made him the loose unit, so maybe they didn't like that.
Well, yeah. Oh.
Jeez. Let's go to the Tom McKay race, because this one is wild. I mean, we thought the Kathy Giesel one was going to be. I mean, Kathy went, way ahead of.
Yeah.
So if we can show do we have the updated? Can you guys pull up the updated results? It should be on the division site. If we can pull, I don't know if you guys have that yet, Scott and Trent, but it's 4 votes. I mean, which triggers an automatic recount, because if it's less than a 0.5% difference, the state picks up the tab for an automatic recount.
Yeah, and so I took a picture of the votes in that race. It was pretty interesting. I have to go quickly to them. But
let's see if Scott and Trent can pull. I mean, it should be on the website. I don't know if they have that.
They don't have the new stuff up yet. No, let's see.
Okay, well, you have a screenshot of that, or do we have a picture? Because I know it was 30.
Let's see. I can
6, 7, 82 to 68 to 72. I mean, four vote, which to be. I mean, to be fair. To be fair, Denny shouldn't have done that well in that district. I mean, this goes to how much he campaigned. And how I think little Tom McKay didn't campaign, because this is a Republican, this is a conservative, and right next door, Craig Johnson with 4 people, actually 3 people, 1 dropped out. Craig was way over half on the first round.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at this race. I'm not. I don't even know.
I thought Danny was going to win.
I did too. I mean,
with the Julie Featherly race, Featherly wasn't ahead as much, and I just wasn't sure how these voters are going to behave. And I mean, it looks like Republicans in Julie's district understood the assignment.
I think they did. I think that is a true statement. Yep.
You know that video that the TikTok, I understood the assignment.
Yeah, we understood the assignment.
So in that case, a lot of these Ross people voted for Julie.
Yeah, I think so.
Even though Walter did get some of them, in that case, it's still pretty close. It's 100 votes, so it's not nearly as close as the McKay. Denny Wells race. Yeah,
that Tom McKay Denny Wells race. I was pretty shocked. I just sent some screenshots to Scott, so maybe he'll be able to pull those up. But it's interesting.
This is the Charisse Millett value here in studio, right in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm in Albuquerque. I'm in Rio Rancho, outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. By the way, folks, if you're just tuning in, I'm in my childhood bedroom. I'm here for Thanksgiving.
Are you going to take us through a tour of your childhood?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, you can see there's my bed there and some other. There's nothing too fancy. But I do want to go through the rest of these races. But like I said, I'm going through the House thing again here in Charisse. It looks like 19 likely kind of coalition members, 20 Republicans, and then Josiah Pawcatuck. We're basically 2020. And then
Split.
Jenny Armstrong's race is under litigation. Well, the judge dismissed it, but they're going to refile it.
Right, and then we'll have the recount for the Tom McKay vote. Right, we'll have to go through a recount.
And then David Eastman is under litigation under the Oath Keeper stuff. So we're gonna.
It'll be interesting. I mean, my prediction is organization will take at least 3 weeks from now till the second week of session before the House gets organized again, unless they've been doing some things. Unless some.
You think 3 weeks from now or 3 weeks into session?
I think 3 weeks from session. So when session starts, I think we'll have another 3 weeks of them not seating a speaker.
Yeah, I mean the last in 2019 and 2021 after those elections in 18 and 20, it was a month.
It took a month, yeah. I think people are going to struggle with the Republicans are going to struggle with being in a caucus. I think I've heard several members talk about not wanting to caucus with David Eastman.
Well, let me just read some names here for the House. Guys, is it possible? I know we're great work, Scott and Trent. Is it possible to get out of this 3 box and just go to me and Charisse? Do we have a 2 box for me and Charisse, or it's just kind of weird with McKay and Denny and David sitting in? I don't know if we could.
David's ready to play hockey.
So the way I figure it here, I have a chart that I made up. Folks, by the way, if you're watching this and aren't a subscriber to the Alaska Political Report, this is tracking I do for the Alaska Political Report. Charisse is a subscriber. PSCA, maybe you can tell them how great it is, and how we really.
Our members like it. It's in-depth coverage of races and what's happening with the cabinet. It's really enlightening. It's a lot of work that I wouldn't want to do, and so if you have reports to give to your membership, it's a quick way to.
You don't mind paying $12.99 a year for all that great value.
Is that how much we pay?
12. I mean, I think the first timer maybe it was 11, but if you're a government entity, if you're a legislative office, if you're a nonprofit, a little bit $9.99, but for the base price $12.99, and you can add multiple people under one subscription. But just to give you an idea for the coalition people, I count 19, and I'm counting. Here's who it is. So you got Dan Ortiz, Rebecca Himschoot, Andy Story, Sarah Hannon. Let me start again. Dan Ortiz, Independent, Rebecca Himschoot, Democrat, Andy Story, Democrat, Sarah Hannon, Democrat. Louise Stutz, I'm counting in there as a Republican, but you never know with her. That's interesting. But I'm putting her in the coalition because she was part of it for a long time, and she was Speaker. Calvin Troggy, Independent. Andy Josephson, Democrat. Elise Galvin, Independent. Jenny Armstrong, Democrat. Asterix, if there's going to be that residency challenge coming up. Zach Fields, Democrat. Cliff Groh, Democrat. We saw he won that race. Genevieve Mina, Democrat. Andrew Gray, Democrat. Donna Mears, Democrat. Maxine Diebert, Democrat. Ashley Carrick, Democrat. Bryce Edgman, Independent. CJ McCormick, Democrat. Neil Foster, Democrat. So that is 19. You take out Luis, you're at 18. Now we go to the Republicans. We have Sarah Vance, Justin Ruffridge, Ben Carpenter, Laddie Shaw, Craig Johnson, Julie Colomb. We just saw that race go. Tom McKay, which is 4 votes, which is, again, very close. There's going to be a recount. Jamie Allard, Dan Sadler, Delana Johnson, Kathy Tilton, David Eastman, Asterix with that Oathkeeper thing, Jesse Sumner, George Rauscher, Kevin McCabe, Will Stapp, Fairbanks new, Mike Prox, Frank Tomaszewski, Fairbanks new, Mike Cronk. Now, if you go to that, you're looking at, that's 20 people. And some of those races are kind of, under question with the recount McKay and then the David Eastman. And then Jamie Allard is also a big problem for, you see how she acts in the assembly. So they're at a weird 20. They don't have 21. And then Josiah Pocketok.
Right.
So the House is going to be something else.
It's going to be all up to the House to decide if they can have a big tent. If the Republicans decide they can't have a big tent, then you're going to see, I think, some of the more moderate Republicans probably look for a coalition. I think if the Republicans, widened their tent and played to some of the more moderate Republicans, they could have a Republican-led House. And that's an option. That's an option.
In my view, I think people like Jesse Sumner, Justin Ruffridge, Jesse was out supporting against the recall for Sabrina Combs. He's conservative, but he's practical. Justin Ruffridge, I hear, is practical. So it just takes a few. It just takes a few people, as you know, Charisse. A few people can do something. Louise Stutz, she's a big factor in all this. And then we have these races that are kind of in question. So they're going to need to get to 22 I think, because 21 they've had that last year, and it was, I mean, they made it work, but it was really, really difficult for them to keep that.
Yeah, 21 is a tough number to hold together a majority, and I was in a minority of 17, and even at 17, they had a tough time with the majority. It was definitely, the wider the margin, the better opportunities you have in the caucus that you have, right? Well,
we saw with 21, somebody was, I don't know if they were sick or what they were doing, but they didn't have enough people for a quorum, which is 21, and the minority wouldn't give it to them.
Yeah, or you wouldn't go to the floor, right, until you had the majority of the people on the floor, and making sure that you have the numbers. And the problem with a slim minority majority is that you have one person that can hold your whole caucus hostage. For whatever you want. You can delay votes. You can do, one person gets a lot of power.
This is a problem if let's say the 21 Republicans got together, which includes David Eastman and Jamie Allard, and then some other new people. I mean, anybody has a veto, it's basically a veto, automatic veto.
Right.
If Josiah came over, it'd be 22, but I don't really see that going down. I don't know. I mean, these McKay recount. And then the David Eastman litigation with the Oath Keepers, and then the Jenny Armstrong thing, they're going to refile in the residency. Let's go through the rest of the races. I mean, the state Senate race. Oh, look at that beautiful. Look at that beautiful 2-box. Call that the old 2-box.
Look at that.
So I wasn't too surprised. I mean, we weren't sure about Tuckerman, but I mean, the Cizik votes, went over to most of them to Bjorkman, and we saw Tuckerman pull it off, and then David Wilson, same deal. We saw that. We weren't sure of the exhaustion. We'll have to go through later and look at. Stay tuned to the landmine and really the political report for real breakdown of this
I was looking at that voter exhaustion, and it was interesting. Some of the races, when they pulled off of the second, counting the third and fourth rounds, you could see a lot of exhaustion in the voters. And I was actually really surprised. One of the races, it was like 1,000 votes and 399 exhausted. So 40% of the votes exhausted in that race. So
I mean, look at this. I'm seeing 990 exhausted votes out of 17th. I mean, this is half the. This is in this case, half the votes were exhausted for the Andy Cizik people.
So
if you look at, he had 1787.
Yep.
And then it looks like 900. If I'm reading that right, 990 were exhausted.
Yep, that's exactly what it reads. So
can we scroll down? Do we have the percentages in this? Or do you guys just have a screenshot? I don't know if you guys have the whole. Looks like just a screenshot. So the percentages, I forget that one, but. Jesse was ahead, so they're gonna I assume put this on the website later, the Division of Elections. But the other one was the other one was David Wilson. Those Scott Clayton votes went over and kicked Wilson way over the top. So
yeah,
this
even in David Wilson there was 1,089 exhausted votes. That's a lot of votes to have exhausted. That people just didn't vote. Second place.
So is there 1,089 of the Scott Clayton votes, which is a third of the votes?
Right.
So we saw, looks like 50%, about 50% with Cizik, but in this case, 30%.
Right. And so I guess that's a part of ranked choice that was the unknown, is what was the exhaustion rate going to be, and people just voted for who they wanted to, and then didn't vote rank a second or rank a third.
So we talked about the state. So this is the 3-state Senate. So as the ones that were ahead stayed ahead. I mean, Jesse stayed ahead, Bjorkman, David Wilson stayed ahead, Kathy. Oh my God, do we have those Kathy Giesel numbers? That was in that one. There was a ton of exhaustion.
Right.
I think what the hell was it? It was like half. I think it was about half of the Rosalind Casey voters exhausted.
Yeah, I think I actually took a picture of that one. Let me see if I have it. Roger Hall.
Again, folks, a big shout out to Charisse for being there in studio. I'm here in New Mexico in my childhood bedroom visiting my parents for Thanksgiving. Charisse is there in studio in Anchorage at the landmine office, and we got Scott Jensen and Trent McNeely running the show. Do we have a camera back there for you guys, or I don't know if we're as fancy as last time with the big show, but if you guys want to show yourselves or show the control room. And then we have Peter, a student who was in UAA, and he came over with his class, and he was at our kind of warm up, and then he came to our show, and we have him now kind of helping out. So
I'm looking at yeah, you have a great team. You have an awesome team that's working and super gracious.
Do we have the GoPro back there for those guys or no?
That's a
look at the exhaustion.
2,800 exhausted votes from, that would be the folks that came out of Rosalind Casey's group.
So that's half of that's a 50% exhaustion. So half of the people who voted for Rosalind Casey were probably hardcore Democrats who were like, I'm not ranking a Republican second, but then a whole bunch of I mean, look at that. What did it go to? I'm trying to see how the distribution went from, it looks like she was at 56. So she picked up like almost every single one of the other ballots.
Right. So they didn't vote for Roger Holland, and half of them exhausted, and half of them went to.
He went from
Kathy Giessel.
He got like what, 400, like less than 400 of her votes.
Yeah. Let's see. What was he at before that even started?
5532 to 50. So he got like 400 of her votes, and then 2,000 of the Casey votes went to Giessel.
Yeah, he was at 5,521. And Giessel was at 5,610 before the ranked choice voting, and Kathy Giessel got 2,000.
Those numbers went up those numbers went up a few points. I guess they did the write-ins first, or
yeah, they did
whatever.
they did the write-ins. There was, it doesn't look like there was a ton of write-ins on that one, and you never know like how many of those actually wrote Kathy Giessel or Roger Holland or Rosalind Casey in there.
Okay, we're getting some folks. They said the internet dropped in some. So let's go to the House races again, the ones we didn't cover yet. So let's go down to. We talked about Colomb, who's winning. We talked about McKay, who's winning by 4 votes. The Cliff Grow one. Cliff picked up a bulk of the.
Yeah, he did.
The Lynn Franks voters.
I saw Cliff Grow's race, and that was I guess I was a little surprised on how many votes Cliff Grow did pick up in that race. I think I was see if I can pull up the numbers here.
He did really well.
Yeah, he did really. Cliff did really well.
Oh, we have Gail's pointer stick.
Yes.
Charisse was texting me. She's like, I need a pointer stick.
A red pointer stick.
So in this case, Frank's, yeah, look at how many went to Cliff. I mean, he went from 746 to 1040. I mean, 300 votes.
Yeah.
And then David went from.
He only picked
he
up
got
40.
Like none of those votes. He got none of those votes. Look at that. Nothing. 40.
40 votes. That's what he got when. So yeah, Lynn Frank's votes either exhausted or went to Cliff Grow.
Looks like the exhaustion on that was 104 out of, so about 20. And that's what we talked about. We said Cliff was telling people in Lynn to bullet the, whatever the fucking bubble the blue or whatever.
Bubble the blue.
So this is an example of that communication. Much lower exhaustion. Let's go to what's the next one, Scott? That's McKay's next. Just go through them in order. It's fine. We can just skip over them once we have an order established, so we can just go through them, and if we already covered it, we'll just skip it. I think McKay is next, right?
Yeah, Tom McKay. Yeah.
Well, no, McKay should be because Grow's 18. So here's McKay. We saw that he's, look at this. This is, wow. Look at that. 3468 to 3470, 4 votes. This is well within the automatic recount margin where the state pays for it.
Yeah, and it looks like 299 of David Ibeck's votes were exhausted out of 1,030.
Which is really what about 30%?
30%.
And then McKay got basically the rest.
He did.
I mean, he went from 3376 to 34. So Denny only got about 100, less than 100 of the Ibeck votes, and then the other bulk of them went to McKay. So this is going to be an automatic recount.
Automatic recount. Yep.
Let's go to the next one. Keep just going in order here.
I mean, if you remember, just going back to District 18, I'm sorry, 15, Denny Wells went into this before ranked choice at 46.63% before the ranked choice David Ibeck's votes dropped. So that was a lot to overcome for Tom McKay, and he did. I mean, David Ibeck's voters were all Republicans, so that makes sense. But that's 46-63.
Yeah. So this is the Doyle. Okay. So this is, yeah. We just saw. Sorry, I was looking at something else on the thing. So look, we saw about about less than 50% of the votes were exhausted, and then McKay. Actually, Doyle got a lot more of her vote. No, it looks like they might have split 33.
Yeah, it looks like they
to
split.
36.
Yep.
So Old Joy kind of didn't really impact too much.
But
so what's the next one?
But do you see in round 2, that was 970 exhausted votes in that race.
Go back to that. I didn't see. Look, I thought it was, maybe I read the wrong number.
No, it was
9.
It was in the second round. It was 970 exhausted votes in that race.
Oh, I was looking at blanks. Wow. So yeah, this is a huge exhaustion.
It's huge.
Same thing we saw with the Rosalynn Casey. The Democrats like, I'm not going to vote for Republicans.
Right.
So yeah, this is 70%. What is that? 1,500. Half, 750s half. Yeah, we're at way up there on the exhaustion. So
65% exhaustion rate in that race.
Yeah, that's really high. Okay, what's the next one, guys? I think that's 31. I mean, was that 30?
So that 31 is a Bart LeBon race in Fairbanks
30,
with Maxine Dilbert and Kelly Nash.
Yeah, and that just, we saw that coming. I mean, Nash was telling people not to. I think she said something. There's two kinds of Republicans: patriots and traitors.
Right.
Bart LeBon is not a patriot.
Right. And that one, there was, let's see, on the exhausted
so
side.
There's 400 exhausted out
400, 399.
For 40% exhaustion.
Yeah.
And then Bart did get some of her votes. I mean, Bart did get, 500 of her votes.
Yeah.
So nowhere near enough.
No, it wasn't enough to overcome what, they had already had during the regular race.
Charisse, would you say it's fair to say Republicans in District 31 did not understand the assignment?
I feel like there might be a TikTok coming about.
I think we need to have an understand the assignment TikTok.
Understand the assignment TikTok. Yep.
I didn't know what that was, and my lady friend, her daughter was like doing it, and I didn't understand it at first, and then I was like saying it because this is me in pop culture. I don't understand sometimes, so then I was using it like for the wrong thing. It took me a while to kind of there's a song.
Did you have to go through TikTok and to try to watch a couple of videos?
I don't have TikTok because I don't want to be monitored by the Chinese. TikTok's basically the Chinese government getting all of our data for free. I'm not on TikTok. I'm on Twitter and Facebook and got the Instagram and all that.
Do you have important data that you don't want the Chinese to get?
I just don't think we should be giving the Chinese all of our data. Let's go to this Jesse Sumner.
This is a good one to look at too.
Jesse did really well. I mean, he really popped ahead.
Yeah, he did.
But this had 2 rounds because it was so
3 rounds,
spread out.
Yep.
2 rounds of counting after the initial round. So we got, what are the exhausted? So
880. So 310 and then 880. So round 2 was 310 and then jumped up to 880 in round 3.
So it looks like there was less exhaustion. I mean, I guess when there's all Republicans, they're more likely to vote for other Republicans.
It wasn't difficult. Ranked the red, so maybe people.
It looks like these folks also understood the assignment.
They did. You're gonna have to do a TikTok now about understanding the assignment for the landmine.
We're gonna definitely have to get that going. So This is Jesse. We kind of figured he was gonna stay in the lead, and he did by quite a bit. I think it was, I forget the numbers, but he was like, was it 60%? I mean, he was a lot.
Yeah.
It came down to the numbers, and I think we have one more, maybe the
House District 30, the Kevin McCabe Doyle Homes.
We already did that one.
Okay, so Maxine Dilbert, and then House District 34, which
there was a Tomaszewski.
Nope, we did Greer, didn't we, with that one?
Greyer.
Sorry, Greyer.
I'm getting a lot of texts. People are saying it's very cringy. Stop saying they understood the assignment.
Oh.
I'm getting texts. Wow. I'm gonna say if you keep telling me that, I'm gonna say who you are, texter. So the Tomaszewski. And by the way, Gail, she missed a lot of these folks' names. I mean, I feel like we follow this stuff. It's Frank Tomaszewski. Like it's Maxine Dilbert.
I also mess up names too, so I mean, there's a lot of letters in those names.
Tomaszewski. I mean, thank God he's not doing a write-in.
Right? How would you put that on a T-shirt?
I mean, I just got used to, like, over the last several years, like I could Svanholz, SPOHNOLZ. So like I got that. So a lot of these names now I got to freaking remember, like Wielechowski, WIELECHOWS. I've like got those because I write them all the time. Now I got to freaking memorize Tomaszewski. So in this one, this is the Bjorkman one. We're looking at again.
Race, yep.
We'll have to get to the Tomaszewski. Anyways, he was very close to he was at 48.92%, and then the other guy, Nate DeMar's Republican, was at 7.81%. So if we can pull that one up.
There was a 990 exhausted ballots in this race after Andy Cizik votes were counted. So,
which is about half.
How many votes did Andy? I was trying to pull that up on here.
1787. You guys see? I don't know what you're seeing. I'm seeing the.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we can pull up
which race?
If we can pull up the Tomaszewski, I'm just kind of curious on the exhaust because the Mars didn't have that many votes, but he had obviously enough to put Tomaszewski over the top.
Right.
But I'm just curious if we have that screenshot or not to show.
And that was 34, District 34. Looks like the exhaustion rate in that race was only 161. So Nate DeMars he had 585 votes and only, so 161 of those did not rank second out of 585.
Sorry, I'm getting some. Well, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, we kind of some of those the big surprises I think were how well Julie did. Here we go. Let's get to this real quick. So it looks like we got 585, and the exhaustion was so very low exhaustion compared to the other races, yeah. and then most of those went to Tomaszewski, which we knew was going to happen. So Dreyer kind of got he's casualty or a victim of the redistricting process. He got put into a much more conservative district. So
much more conservative district, yeah.
I mean, I'd say the surprises to me were kind of how, Giesel did better than, that was not as close as I think some people thought. To me, I think Colomb is well ahead, 100 votes ahead of Featherly. And then really this McKay 4-vote deal is like, wow. That's just really.
I actually was surprised Walter Featherly didn't do better than he did. But, Julie pulled ahead with Ross Beeling's votes. Looks like she got a majority of those votes. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the recount goes for Tom McKay. I haven't seen a lot of recount votes that change the election outcome. 4 votes, though, that's pretty close.
Yeah, I don't know about recounting a ranked choice with these write-ins, and I don't know if they recount it from the beginning.
Yeah, where do they start?
They probably recount from the beginning, I guess.
You would have to.
So we see here, this is the McKay race or the Featherly race, Julie Colomb. So Julie's about 110 votes ahead of Featherly. Yeah. Wish we had the percentages. I mean, that's pretty close, but that's not in. I don't think that's in with the automatic recount. The automatic state recount is it's like 0.5%.
And that one, it looks like of Ross Beeling votes, it looks like 421 peeled off and were exhausted. So 45% of his votes just went nope.
Yeah, so that's I think it was just for me and everybody else, we weren't sure how the exhaustion was going to go. So in this case, it looks like he had 1183, exhausted 4, so we're at about 40%. So, but then we see that the rest of those votes, almost all of them went to Colomb.
Right. I think if we have ranked choice voting again, I think the Republicans have a lesson to learn here about ranking the red and starting early. At this point, if you want a Republican organization, you're going to have to talk about ranking the red, and that's I think that was.
Well, you have to understand. You have to understand the assignment. It's Cale Green. Cale Green's telling me it's like very cringy. I'm gonna out him. He can take it. He's like, and then he said, "I stand by my statement." What did he say here? I stand by my statement. I wonder what Allison thinks. If Allison Hovanek, the Alaska Stalker's watching, if my commentary about understanding the assignment is cringy or not.
Well, I think election analysis are going to be key in the next 2 years for the next round of elections that we have, the next House races, both Mary Peltola and the House races, and then whatever 50% of the Senate group sets up. It's going to be a broader conversation about what Republicans want to do. I think that the message needs to get out there if the Republicans want to win overwhelmingly, no matter what Republican is running, right? You have to rank the red. You have to start that conversation a lot earlier than we did. But
well, and we already see there's kind of an effort, and I don't know how serious it is to repeal this thing through a ballot initiative, but I've talked about this already on some of my live streams. The way to do that successfully costs millions of dollars. You have to get signatures. You have to, pay people to gather signatures. You have to convince people to vote to repeal it. And the other side, who supported it 2 years ago, is for sure going to come back with money.
Right.
To fight it. So I mean, it's not like it's not so simple. We're going to put it on the ballot.
And we already know that we're going to have ranked choice voting in 2 years. We already know that no matter what happens, the repeal, whatever, it won't make it on the ballot in 2 years. So we're going to have one more round of ranked choice voting, no matter what we do. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So we'll have a lot of analysis between now and when the elections start in, 8 months, I guess, 9 months. You can start filing.
Let's just before we finish here, and I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. And I want to thank Scott and Trent and Peter for being there in studio and doing this, and Charisse for being here and doing this with me. Let's go back to just the big ticket, the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House races. As predicted, Murkowski came out on top. What's that? Almost 20,000 votes ahead of Chewbacca after the Pat Chesbrough. What's the exhaustion here?
9,000
out of, so only about 30, about 30%. Pretty low compared to some of those legislative races.
Right. Yeah,
So
that was an important race. I think people paid attention, and top of the ticket, right? So you have Murkowski, then Patola, then the governor. So I think people were, as farther they got down the ballot, we saw the exhaustion rate go up higher. So definitely, ranked choice voting as you go down the ballot hurts the state candidates more than it hurts the federal candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got the last one we'll talk about here is the House race. We all pretty much thought Patola was going to win, and she did. After those baggage voters got recycled, she was pretty far ahead. So, to me, the big surprise was the McKay and the Colomb race, the House races, and then the Giesel, kind of how much she pulled ahead of.
Right. The Giesel race to me was surprising. I thought it was going to be close, but looking at that race, looking back at it now, it's like, she got some votes. She got some votes in round 2, and.
Scott, real quick, pull back it was just up there, the Patola baggage Palin. Let's just look at the exhaustion there a little. So it looks like exhausted 14,000 out of.
Wow, it's a lot more exhausted in the House race than it was in the Senate race. We only saw 9,000 in the Senate race, and now we're seeing 14,000, almost 15,000.
Yeah, but there was, but that was 9,000 out of 30. This is 14,000 out of 64.
That's true.
So the percent, I think we saw. I remember seeing a whole bunch of baggage people voted for Palin. But just, with Patola being already almost a half, and I think she picked up a few of those buy votes too, but it wasn't enough.
I think she did too, yeah.
So, well, this is, again, I think the takeaways for me here, the big takeaway is the House is so split, basically 2020, when you factor in kind of Pocketok, Louise Stutz, and, there's these races in question, the Eastman race and the Jenny Armstrong race and residency in Eastman and the Oath Keep, which I think Eastman's going to beat.
Yeah, I think Eastman's going to beat that race too. Beat that court case. I just can't imagine that that's going to be something that they're going to hold their hat on and set a new precedent for.
He caught a case. I'm sure Kale didn't like that either. So yeah. The House, I think we're going to see. With the McKay, recount and all that, I think it's going to be several weeks. And you're probably right. It's probably not going to be into session. Now, the Senate, we already know organized, but they haven't announced yet. But I think it's going to now with, I think they were waiting to make sure Kathy won and David Wilson won and Jesse Bjorkman won. So they're going to have very certain a 16 to 17 member majority, big majority.
They're probably announcing as soon as we end our program.
Which they should come on. We had Bert and Gary.
We did have Bert
on
and
our
Gary.
show.
Yeah.
And remember, I think it was Ivan or Mark Begich was saying, just organize right now, but tell us what's going on.
They probably were organized when they were here, so they're playing chess all the time.
Let's do it live. Well, again, big thanks to Charisse Millett for being there live in Anchorage. I'm here in my childhood bedroom and my parents' house in New Mexico. Scott Jensen, Trent McNeely for being in the control room running the show. Peter for learning with us, and then our sponsors for the last program and this program, and we got the three of the big ones on there, but also all of our sponsors and all the people that have been supportive of the landmine and doing this. Stay tuned. We're going to be covering this in the landmine, this House situation and how the organization is going to play out. And then, we see now one of the races for the U.S. Congress and the organization. The Republicans have it, but with Patola, we see a very close organization there with, just like the State House, the Congress, the U.S. House is extremely close. Margins. So they have a majority, but barely. But again, I want to thank Charisse, Scott, Trent, Peter, all of our viewers, all of our sponsors. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Hope you're with your friends and family.
Happy
Enjoy
Thanksgiving.
the turkey. Enjoy football, all that, and it's going to be. We're going to see you guys next time.
All right, thanks, you guys. Happy.